How are we doing, everyone, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 wide receivers to keep down on the bench for Week 7 fantasy football action. These are players that here, again, we've got some limited options here, but in Week 7, we're making pushes for the fantasy playoffs and trying to keep our seasons going strong here. And these are names that I've got kind of in that bust radar type of territory, where I'm being cautious, staying away from these names here, these tough matchups or situations, whatever the case may be, and looking for better opportunities in my lineup here for this week. So, without further ado, we're not wasting too much time. Let's hit the intro and get straight in to my first must-sit wide receiver. All right, here we go, jumping into today's episode brought to you by ThriveFantasy.com. When you join and become a new user on Thrive and use promo code SIZZLE, S-I-Z-Z-L-E, and deposit up to $100, they'll give you an instant deposit match bonus. So if you go in there and put $100 down in your Thrive account using promo code SIZZLE, you'll be starting out with $200 to play with on their player prop style of daily fantasy sports betting. It's really fun. I do it every week, and here for Thursday Night Football, I'll be going through my lineup in Thursday morning's episode, so you can all take a look and see what that looks like. But the link to Thrive will be in the description of today's video. Corey Davis is my first must-sit wide receiver here. The exact same situation, actually, as to the reasoning for why I benched him in Week 2 in the first divisional matchup between the Jets and Patriots this season. This is just a living nightmare for rookie quarterbacks when you walk into New England, especially. This is the game on the road for the Jets. You're going to Gillette Stadium to play the Patriots. There's a lot of things that can go wrong here. And Bill Belichick, I've said this so many times on the channel, he eats young quarterbacks alive. Davis Mills was actually one of the QBs that fared the best against this Patriots defense, despite the fact that this is not the generational unit that we've seen them be during the course of that Patriots dynasty. They're a little bit more undermanned. The roster isn't quite where it's been in the past, but the schematics are still there. Bill Belichick is still calling the plays, and he can use disguise zone coverages, make things look like what they're not, and cause a lot of mistakes and ultimately turnovers to occur from these young quarterbacks. And Zach Wilson was a picturesque example of that in that Week 2 performance. He had 4 interceptions against the Patriots at home. Now you're traveling to Gillette. Again, that's going to be a riled up crowd. You never know what you might be getting for weather in New England. We'll have to keep an eye on that as things approach, because this could make the situation a lot worse if somehow we get a pregame monsoon. But again, weather bearing, we've got to check into that, wait for the week to play out and see what's going to happen. I haven't even looked at it myself, so I have no idea that that's going to be the case. But again, just another example of something that could go wrong for this Jets offense, in spite of the fact that they've already got a brick wall facing them here. Davis had a lot of targets in that first game, but they struggled. Even though the Jets are coming off a bye week, getting a week of rest here, an extra week of preparation for this tough matchup on the road this week, I'm staying away. Zach Wilson has shown some flashes, but not quite enough to give me faith and confidence in Corey Davis to be a starting level player in my lineups for Week 7 here. Tyler Lockett, another player. I'm sitting him down on the bench for the second straight week. Geno Smith is exactly what the doctor did not want to order for this Seahawks passing game and these deep threat wide receivers. DK Metcalf, a player who I expected to be able to maintain somewhat of his levels of production with Russell Wilson under center transitioning into Geno Smith, because I thought he might get locked in on there in that Sunday night matchup against the Steelers, see a heavy amount of targets go his way, and ultimately be able to beat that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Geno Smith's almost entire passing game workload was checkdowns to the running back. The most effective plays they had when throwing the football were simple dink and dunk passes to DJ Dallas and Alex Collins, and getting them out into space and having them do damage after the catch. Tyler Lockett's a deep threat wide receiver. He excels at beating corners deep, finding separation, 20-plus yards downfield, and making explosive plays. That situation and that section of this offense is just not being utilized, and it's not on display here with Geno Smith under center. So for this foreseeable future here, especially against the Saints defense this week, which is better than we give them credit for, they've taken somewhat of a step backwards from the 2020 campaign they had, but still a very formidable unit nonetheless. In the foreseeable future here, until we get Russell Wilson back under center and can really unlock that deep passing game element to the Seattle offense, I'm staying away. The Seahawks offense continues to get banged up as well, as maybe they won't be with their number 2 running back, Alex Collins, as he does have a chance to play on Monday night, but he's still banged up with some various injuries after that performance against the Steelers. So a lot not to like here for Tyler Lockett. I think there's an incredibly good chance that we see a second consecutive bust performance out of him, and he's going to leave a lot of fantasy managers with something to be left to be desired for this week. Kenny Golladay, or any Giants receiver for that matter, even so a Sterling Shepard type player in this matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Now we have to wait and see, obviously, because Kenny Golladay didn't play last week. I'm just assuming that if he's able to get back into this lineup and establish himself as the wide receiver 1 for this football team, at least in terms of the depth chart, this isn't an option I want to go with. He's been too unreliable this season, especially in terms of his health, and right now the Giants are just a complete disaster. Kadarius Toney's also had another flare-up of that ankle injury, and the reports are that this time it could be serious because it sounds like he's progressed whatever he was dealing with off the bat to a further extent, and now he might be missing some significant time. So this Giants wide receiver core has been really just crammed and condensed down to Sterling Shepard, whether or not Kenny Golladay can play on a week-to-week basis, and then you've got Darius Slayton, who would be the next man up in this offense. Any of these options are just not really where you want to go in fantasy lineups right now. Now, Sterling Shepard is the most reliable of the bunch. He's the player that sees the highest target share and most consistently puts up floor numbers here. But facing a Carolina defense that's gotten kind of banged up and beaten up the last couple weeks, they're a little bit weaker on the back end than they were at the beginning of the season, where they were pretty much a unit that was clamping up a lot of opposing wide receiver cores. They've still got some things going for them here. The Giants' offensive line is incredibly weak. Daniel Jones' turnover issues flared up this past week against the Rams. And with all this stuff kind of steam piling and rolling over the Giants roster right now, the just multitude of injuries they've got, the dysfunction they've got offensively, the sloppy play they've had, there's a lot that has not gone right and will continue, in my estimation, to not go right here in this week's matchup. The one thing the Panthers still have going for them is a pass rush. They're going to get after Daniel Jones, pressure the quarterback, force him to make throws early or off balance. I don't think that plays out too well here. There is the slim chance, the very unlikely scenario, that Stephon Gilmore could be activated and then activated for game day. So he is eligible to return from the PUP list here in Week 7, and there's a small chance that they are able to actually transition him into being ready for the game. I don't expect that to be the case here. There's a lot of hoops they'd have to jump through, but that would make things even worse here. Even though it's his first game back, you're getting a former Defensive Player of the Year back and infused into that secondary unit. I think that this could be spelling a lot of bad news for Giants pass catchers this week and just make this a really tough situation from top to bottom because of how bad that offense has been as a whole. Henry Ruggs against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a weekly boom or bust play, and this is a matchup that I think is under the radar in terms of the difficulty that it might present. We're unsure, and it's no guarantee that Darius Slay will be traveling with Henry Ruggs in this matchup, but if that's the case, this is a big stay away for me. Darius Slay is one of the more athletic corners in the game. Right now, with all the injuries we've got at the position, he's probably one of the tougher matchups to face in terms of players being traveled with at the wide receiver position. If Ruggs can't ultimately hit a big pass over the top and beat a defense deep, he's probably not going to be able to rack up the amount of reception yards that you want to see him have. I mean, last week he had 97 yards and a touchdown, but he only had 3 catches. Again, that's because he's getting his damage done over the top. He's making explosive plays happen. And in this matchup, the Philadelphia Eagles may not be the best football team on the field, but I think that they have a defense good enough to keep Henry Ruggs to a quiet outing here. They've got some dang fast corners. Avonte Maddox can run. They've got, like I said, Darius Slay that can come out here, and if he travels with Ruggs, like I said, it could be a quiet afternoon for Henry. I think that he's always got some element where he can come out here and catch a long one and score, but this is a matchup that I think that's more likely than not to not be the case for Ruggs in this matchup. A lot of speed on that Eagles secondary. And then Allen Robinson here. If there was a matchup on paper that you would expect A-Rob to step up and have his breakout game for the 2021 season in, it would be this matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But when you consider the rest of this offense and the dynamic that Justin Fields has played with under center, I think that there's a couple things that make me believe that that won't be the case for A-Rob, and we should continue to have him on the bench because, let's be honest, he hasn't put up starting-worthy numbers all season for us, and if you're hoping for him to take that step forward this week, I'm going to caution you in doing so, and be patient, and if that's the case, and if he ends up breaking out that this week, that's great. I'd love to see it because I've still got a couple shares of A-Rob where you're not really able to sell him because his trade stock is so low right now, but the talent is there. You see it flash on his 1 to 2 catches he makes every week. They just got to get this passing offense going. Here's why I see Allen Robinson struggling this week. The Bears are going to be incredibly one-dimensional. Tampa Bay is one of the best units against the run in the National Football League. They are going to take the running backs out of this contest for Chicago and force Justin Fields to throw the football. Justin Fields' issue as a passer is not that he doesn't have the talent or the playmaking ability, the skill to make throws on the run, to make deep passes downfield, and to do those things that we see the game's elite playmakers doing. It's the fact that he hasn't taken the next step in his development as an NFL quarterback, and he's still playing a step slower than the defenses around him. Last week he played my Packers. I watched every snap of that game. He had a play where Allen Robinson was streaming wide open across the middle of the field, 25, 30 yards deep on a post pattern, no defenders in sight, and he simply just didn't see it. He did not notice that A-Rob had gotten free deep down the field, and therefore he just simply didn't even try and wind up and make the throw. Now, he was under some pressure, but there was a time that he had plenty of opportunity to make that play before he got flushed out of the pocket that he just didn't do so. Fields' other problem, he holds the ball too long. He has not had a quick trigger release, and he has not found ways to get rid of the football quickly and efficiently in this offense, and that has led to him taking a lot of sacks. Now, the Bears' offensive line has not done him many favors, especially in his first start against the Cleveland Browns. But Justin Fields has to bear some of the burden for this blame as well. He just needs to get rid of the ball quicker. Faster releases, 1, 2, 3 steps, boom, get rid of the football. He hasn't done that so far. A-Rob and Darnell Mooney are suffering as a result of this. Now, A-Rob would probably be a little bit more of a quick passing game type player for this team, as Darnell Mooney is one of those really good deep ball threats who can separate downfield from the defense and score on some of those explosive plays. But again, we're not getting that level of production out of Justin Fields right now because he just needs to figure out how to take that next step in this game. And when you're playing a Tampa Bay pass rush that is going to get pressure on him, and if he holds the ball for too long, he's not going to have the time or the luxury of getting some blown coverages or being able to sit in the pocket for as long as he'd like to. So we've got to see the quarterback position take some step forwards for the Bears this week if we're going to see some of these players start to break out and progress down the stretch of this season. I'd love to see it happen, but I'm waiting one more week for A-Rob and the rest of the Bears offense. All right, those are my 5 must-sit wide receivers for Week 7 fantasy football action presented to you by ThriveFantasy.com. Go check out their website, download their app on your phone, and remember, when you sign up and use promo code SIZZLE, you'll get that extra deposit bonus match of 100% of whatever you put down, up to $100. So again, if you put in $25, Thrive will give you an extra $25 on top for $50 total to play with on their site for this season, and I'll be covering some of my own picks for the games on their site this season in a future episode this week. Well, actually, tomorrow's episode, you'll be seeing that come out. So thank you all so much for watching, supporting the content, and being the awesome community that you all are. Go check out some of the other fantasy football videos I put out for Week 7 action, and check out some of the advice for trades, lineup advice, and all that great stuff that we've got for you at your disposal for this week. So thank you all one more time. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.